Okay, this is a brief introduction to the Fong Phone. The Fong Phone is a synth that fits in your pocket, available on iOS and Android. It was created by myself and Andrew Allred. I'm just going to do a quick walkthrough to show you some of the features of the Fong Phone that hopefully you can use to amaze your friends, generally trance out, and annoy your pets. Okay, so this here is the Fong Phone. So when you first launch the app, you're greeted with this screen here. So what you see here are two Fongs. The Fongs are these two dots here, which you'll notice are both pulsing here, pretty slowly in this setting, but they're both pulsing at different rates. Now as I slide them across, you'll see that they pulse a little faster. You'll also notice something interesting here, that one Fong will start pulsing a little faster as I move the other one. So what's going on here is that this second Fong here is pulsing as an offset of the first one here. Now, when I move it left and right, you're going to see that it changes only its own pulse rate, because it's always going to be multiple of this first one here. So by sliding this Fong left and right, I'm going to change the rate at which each of them pulse. And doing this, you get kind of different rhythms and stuff out of this. The second thing you're going to notice here on this first screen is that the Y coordinates here affect pitch. So I think that's pretty obvious there. Another interesting thing to note on this screen here is that you have this bright dot in the center of each Fong. And if you move that left and right, that actually controls pan. So that's like a stereo pan there. So you can use this to fade to the left and the right channels. If you're wearing headphones, you should be able to hear that effect a little bit there. Sorry for those menus that keep popping up. I'm running this in a simulator so that I can do the screen grab here, and it likes to do that from time to time, especially when I long press on something. Alright, so that's our first screen here. I'm going to show you some of these other screens that we've got. You can navigate across the screens down here with this tab selection at the bottom. So this is our sound screen here, and what we have here is this effects chain that's applied to each Fong. And some of these effects are just going to affect both of the Fongs. Technically, each Fong actually has its own effect chain, but we haven't broken the interface out to let you discretely control both Fongs just yet. That's going to come soon. So we have this filter here that's turned on right now, and it's just going to apply the same filter to both Fongs. But you see here we have currently a low pass filter on, but we can switch this to, say, a high pass. Peaking and notch. Right now, with the way I have it set up, you can't really hear that too much, but I think after I play around with some other effects here, I'll come back to that and you should be able to hear a little bit more pronounced what those do. Let's look down here at the wave portion here. So this one we have actually broken out. So we have wave 1 and wave 2, which are basically Fong 1 and Fong 2. And what we can do here is control the wave type of the Fong. So you'll hear this for sure. So right now we've got a nice sawtooth there on the Fong 1. We can also change its envelope type, which the envelope type is basically controls the way it pulses. So right now it's on a square. You hear how that sine wave there just kind of smooths out the pulse there. You can also do a sawtooth. And we can play with some of the same things here for our second Fong here. So give it a sawtooth wave type, for example, or a square, triangle, or back to side. So you can hear how those things have an impact. And make it an envelope type of sign too. And the second thing we can do here is we can play with the envelope number here, which is basically, that determines like how the space is mapped here. So, you know, like as I said, as I move these left and right, I'm changing the rate at which they pulse, and those numbers are going to be distributed a little differently depending on how I have this set over here. So this is going to change the map, like so, like basically the max number you can get out of this. So let's crank this up a bit, and you can hear right away how they're getting faster there. Try something like that. Okay, so over here we also have a glide here, which that's a portamento. So what that's going to do is just stretch out the transition from one pitch to another. So as we move the Fong up and down on the y-axis and it changes from note to note, you're going to hear that makes a slow transition from note to note instead of being instantaneous there. So if we stretch this out a bit, this is going to be the time it takes for it to transition from note to note. So if we go over here and we try this again. I think you can hear that there. So there you go, you can hear this filter a little better now, how different those can be. I think we'll go back to a low pass there. And another thing you'll notice we have going on is we have this delay, which right now we already have on. So you've actually kind of been hearing the results of that. But we have a delay here. So this is with the delay turned way down. But if I was to come back over here and turn this delay back up, and we'll change its duration a little bit here. Now if I was to crank this back up, you can hear the effects of that delay there. Another good screen to take a look at here is our notes and loops screen. You'll see here we've got some scales on this, and what this does is this distributes the notes of the scale across the map here. So as we move up and down on the y-axis, we're always falling onto one of these notes. But one of the things we can do is we can actually just turn the note map off altogether. And now we're just basically mapping these to just raw frequencies in the frequency spectrum here. So no need to feel boxed in by standard Western scales with the Fong Phone. I kind of call this Fong Phone Classic because the original instrument I based this on was built in a shoebox, and it did not have any kind of note mapping So you got really crazy stuff like this. And I quite like that, but if you have you know, a bit more of a musical ear and that drives you crazy, you can turn on the note maps here, and then you'll get a scale, and you can choose different scales here. I myself like the blues scale, and that's going to change, you know, again, these are going to be distributed across that scale. Something else fun you can do over here is you can change the octaves. An important thing to note here is these are broken up across the two Fongs, so we have, you know, our two different Fongs here, which you can select up at the top here. And you can also change the note that we start on here. And you can also rearrange the scale. So again, that's just going to change how these notes are distributed along the y-axis. So how they get mapped depending on where you fall on this y-axis. Another great thing to check out over here on this screen is the looping feature. So I'm going to go ahead and turn looping on for one of these Fongs. And let's see if I can find the right one. I'm not sure which one I turned it on for yet. Just move both of them around some. There we go. So you see it's going to start repeating the motions I've made in a loop. And you'll be able to hear the effects of that as it... Now I'm going to go over here and turn it on for the other Fong. But I'm going to also turn on this chunkiness mode to the loop. So what the chunkiness does is, this number here is a percentage, and it's going to drop that percentage of the points in the loop as it records. The in chunky is kind of like a pre-processor, and the out chunky is kind of like a post-processor. So the in chunky is going to drop the points as they come in, the out one's going to drop them as it plays it back, but they're both just randomly dropping points according to a certain percentage. So I'll start playing with this Fong here. And you'll see that it also gets a loop, but that loop is much more discretized and, I dare say, chunky. So we now have that going on. And one of the cool things is while that's going on, you know, you can come back over here and continue to play with things like this. So we got that, and then another menu worth taking a look at here is our states menu. So what the states do is they let you save states. So if I long press this guy, aside from that ugly menu that popped up, what you get is you get that the state is now saved. So what that means is that you can restore previous states. Now an interesting thing to note here is the state save does not include the loop. We'd like to add the ability to store the loops in the future. Obviously that'd be a really useful feature to have, but for now it doesn't do that. But one of the cool things that you get as a result of that is that you can keep a loop going, but we can toggle states. So we have the same loop there, different states, so you can really play around with that and get some weird sounds. And I'm going to go ahead back over here actually and turn off this loop for a second and show one more quick thing here back on the Fong screen. So over on the sound screen I showed where you could change the wave type. One interesting thing is you can actually do the same thing right from the main screen if you just double tap a Fong. So that also toggles through the wave types. And another thing you can do from this screen is if you long press, that has turned off the rhythmic part basically for that Fong. And it now is just basically a solid wave. And let's go ahead and come over here again and turn off this. I think maybe we might have, I think one of these is still pulsing, isn't it? So now we have almost kind of like a theremin type effect here, where we don't have the pulsing, we just have the solid tone. Right now I've got it just free range, all frequencies, but you can also use this with the note map on. Another cool thing you can then do with this is the last Fong you've selected. Once you've drug a Fong around, you can just simply click on the pad, and the Fong is going to jump to that position. So I can select this guy now. So you can kind of play up and down the scale or the range of frequencies like that if you'd like. One more feature worth noting on this screen that I can't really demonstrate because of the nature of this simulator I'm using. It doesn't let me pinch and zoom, but if you were to pinch and zoom on one of these Fongs, you can actually make it bigger and smaller, and what that does is that allows you to do like a crescendo and to play with dynamics. So each of those Fongs you can make a little louder based on resizing them, but I can't unfortunately show that in the simulator. That is basically the Fong Phone, so I really hope that everyone out there enjoys it, and I'd love to hear feedback from people, so feel free to shoot me some comments.